Okay, so first off, prayers to the Ukraine. Um, Prayers to both sides, to Russia and the Ukraine, losing um, young men. Um, at the end of the day, we're all human. We got lives, we got family. So rest in peace to the young men that's passing away on both sides for this unnecessary war. Uh, so an update. So 12 confirmed dead so far, 90 injured after airstrikes to the Ukrainian capital of Kiev. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Um, but this is the deadliest attack on that city since last July. Um, so Trump sounded off, and Trump basically said, he's not happy with the airstrikes on Kiev. It's not necessary, and it's bad timing. And he asked for Vladimir to stop. Um, but then President Trump also lashed out on Zelensky for refusing to surrender Russian occupied Crimea. Hopefully, I'm saying that right, as part of a possible deal. But Russia is not compromising on anything themselves when it comes to this hopes of a war stopping. Um, and so when President Trump was being interviewed, what was interesting to me was so Trump was asked, you know, the deal that he had with Russia doesn't include recognizing Russia's sovereignty over Crimea. And President Trump responded by saying he just wants to see the end. He just wants to see the war end. Um, so basically, there's no compromise on Russia's side, but it seems to be all Ukraine. Um, and then salt got rubbed into the wound, in my honest opinion, when Vice President Vance, he didn't make the situation any better by saying that the U.S. is ready to walk away from that war if a deal doesn't get done. Um, and I forgot who said it, and it may have been multiple people, but there was an individual. There was a quote in history that said, if we don't recognize and remember the things that have happened in the past, we're doomed to repeat them. And in history, because I like to go back and actually look for these things that have happened. And in history, in 1938, you had the Munich Agreement, where Naval Chamberlain, he had forced Czechoslovakia to give up some land to Hitler, which of course played a big part in unleashing in unleashing, what we hear in history class as World War II, giving up, things that don't need to be given up, that don't belong to people, that don't belong to these countries in the first place. Thinking that when we give these things up, that this is it's going to bring peace, and it's not. Um, there was also another situation, I believe, uh, unspeakable suffering in the Yalta Accord, where Joseph Stalin, he had imposed influence over Eastern and Central Europe. So examples of things like this happening over history. I'm not saying the same thing is going to happen, but we have enough examples to know that if you give up land for a man or men who have extreme amounts of power, that doesn't mean that they're going to be satisfied. They're going to see what else they can get and who else they can take it from. Um, and it's interesting because former President Joe Biden and current President Trump have both had this sort of go along to get along, with Russia for a long time, and and while all this is happening, China is also watching this. You know, so you have the tariff situation going on between the U.S. and China, amongst other countries, of course, but pinpointing more so toward the U.S. and China, right? You got the tariff situation going on. China's not budging in what they believe and what they feel. China came out not too long ago and said, we're ready for whatever type of war you got. You know what I'm saying? So, but then you have that situation. Then you have China looking to grab Taiwan. So this is not a time for when you just say, "Oh, I just wanted to be done as the president, as a leader of the free world." This is not a time for you to say, "Oh, I just want this war to be done and figure out what you gotta do to get it done and give Russia the land." This is not the time for that. So I'm interested to know exactly, what the U.S. gets out of this deal. It just seems like it's a short-term stress relief, in my honest opinion. And I don't want to speak for the man, but it feels like Trump admires people who have this sort of absolute power sort of a structure going on. President Trump admires people who have this sort of absolute power structure going on. And I'm not gonna lie, I have it too. Like, I have a respect for Vladimir Putin. I have a respect for the leader of China. I have a certain respect for these men who get themselves into these positions in these countries that are they don't really follow any sort of rules when it comes to electing officials. And so I've always kind of had a fascination with that, like how power is gained and stuff like that. So I get it from a regular person standpoint, but when you're the president of a country, when you're the president of the United States, all that stuff has to go out the window. Because you don't want someone pulling something over on you. You don't want to be taken advantage of. So when it comes time for you to actually put your foot down and handle some business, then it's like, well, we don't believe you. We don't believe you're going to do anything because you haven't shown us that you're willing to do anything. You haven't shown us that you have the cojones, that you have the strength to stand up to us. So I say all that to say, I'm very interested to know. This is why I love social media, because you can talk to so many people worldwide, and it could be, you can have dialogue with anybody anytime worldwide. So I'm in the U.S. and I would love to know what Europeans are thinking about this whole situation. If they're on Russia's side, if they're on Ukraine's side, if they just want all this to end like President Trump wants all this to end, if they see an end goal to all this, if they even know what's going on. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I'm in the U.S., so I'm trying to mind my business. I don't really want to get into any wars with anybody, to be totally honest with you. I'm not built for the wars. I don't want to see people suffer unnecessarily because of two political parties fighting about something. I don't really want to see that. But I would like to know, my fellow Europeans, what you think about this whole situation. So let me know in the comments, man, what y'all think, and I'll definitely dialogue and talk back with y'all. All right, now.